Hey, what's up guys? This is 9Lives coming at you with another video. So recently I was quickscoping with the bar in a hardcore free-for-all and I started to notice that something about the scopes in this game isn't quite right. Bullets are curving. Check this out. So naturally I wanted to test this out with the sniper rifles to see if I would find the same thing, and sure enough, here it is with the Kar98K. Alright guys, so for today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look at what exactly is going on with the scopes in this game, because as you can see here, my crosshairs are not on these guys, yet I'm still getting the kills. So this curving bullet effect is definitely the worst on the bar, because I tested it out on the actual sniper rifles like the Kar98K and the Springfield and all that, and the bar is by far the worst. If you guys are unfamiliar, the bar is an assault rifle. The reason I'm able to quickscope with the bar, which is an assault rifle, is because I'm playing hardcore here, which means that the bar is able to kill in one shot. And I'm also using the quick draw attachment, which means that I can ADS in about 200 milliseconds, which is extremely fast, faster than any of the sniper rifles. So even though it's classified as an assault rifle in this game, and in real life it's actually classified as a machine gun, in hardcore it's a very effective sniper rifle for quickscoping. So I was just messing around with it and realized, wow, okay, the scopes are not working properly at all. And then I went into a private match, did a bunch of testing, tested the Kar98K, the Springfield, the Lee Enfield and everything like that. And basically in this video, I wanted to show you my findings and show you to what extent these weapons are all effective. So just before we jump into the actual sniper rifles, I just wanted to highlight this clip here. The center of my screen is marked with the red crosshair. You can see I'd already taken my shot at this point as indicated by the muzzle flash. Neither the center of my screen nor the center of my scope was over the enemy, yet it's still gonna register the hit. To me, this indicates that either the scopes or the hitboxes are broken, maybe even both. Okay, so we're about to take a closer look at the sniper rifles. Now, just because of the subject matter we're working with here, I can guarantee that some of you are planning to write a comment in the comment section down below about sniper rifles being overpowered or that they need to be nerfed or something along those lines. And I just want to say, if you haven't seen it, you need to watch my COD World War II sniping is not overpowered video. It's linked right there in the top right corner of the screen. If you click it, you can open it up in a new tab and watch it afterwards. It explains with proof why sniping and quickscoping in Call of Duty World War II is not overpowered. All right, with that all being said, let's get into the good stuff. So I started out by testing the Kar98K. This is a private match against recruit level bots just to test hitboxes and how the scope is working. And this is the only issue I ran into while using the reg scope. Everything on my screen indicated that should have been a hit. However, the bullet just didn't connect. Again, this is a private match where I'm the host, so there's no connection issue. That's a bot right there. And yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in because clearly there's some sort of hitbox issue there. Honestly, I didn't expect to see anything like that, but it just surprised me, so I thought I'd throw it in. Actually, at the beginning of my previous video, I responded to a viewer's comment and said that I didn't think there was anything wrong with the hitboxes in this game and they seem to be working fine. I did a live test of the hitbox in that video to basically verify my belief that I think the hitboxes are fine, but actually now after doing some further testing, I'm starting to question if maybe the hitboxes are something that the developers should take a look at to see if they really are working as intended or if there are some inconsistencies there. Either way, I am very evidence driven with all my opinions on sniping and quickscoping and all that, and I think if you've watched a few of my videos, you'll notice I always try and provide as much proof as I can to support an opinion that I have, and if I'm gonna argue that sniping is not overpowered, I'll explain to you why in like 10 different ways and provide evidence to back that all up. So that's why now seeing that there actually may be some issues with the hitboxes, I have no problem admitting that, because in my own testing, it seems like, yeah, maybe there are some issues with the hitboxes here. Anyways, I watched a whole bunch of Kar98K shots in slow motion and didn't see any issues other than that one shot where the bullet didn't register even though it looked like it should have. However, when I put the 4x scope on the Kar98K, that's where I noticed that it doesn't quite keep up with the shots properly, kind of like what was happening with the bar. So this shot right here, when I was pulling pretty hard to the left, the crosshairs of my scope were lagging behind where I was actually aiming. When I put a grid on this, you can see that the whole scope is lagging over to the right because I'm pulling to the left. So for the Kar98K, this only really happens when you're using the 4x scope attachment, but with the Springfield, it happens with the regular scope too. So you can see here, my crosshairs on my scope never crossed over onto the enemy. I take the shot and it's still gonna give me the kill. And if I put a red crosshair on the screen, you'll see where I was actually aiming. So that's where the center of my screen was. It was actually touching his shoulder, but the crosshairs of my scope were not. And again, it's because the scope is not keeping up. I'll put the grid overlay again, and you can see my whole scope is shifted over to the left because I was pulling to the right. So the crosshairs are not accurately representing where my bullet's actually gonna go. And I didn't think this was a thing before, but yeah, after analyzing a whole bunch of shots, I started to find a few instances of these. Now, it's not super common. It happens like maybe once out of every 100 shots or something like that. Roughly, I really did have to look for them, and I looked at every single shot I took in slow motion and everything. And yeah, so sometimes this does happen, as you can see here. So the worst case of sniper rifle scopes not lining up with where they're actually aiming is when you're coming out of a reload with the Springfield. That's right here. As you can see, the scope is nowhere near where I was actually aiming. The whole bottom part of the scope is completely cut off. The whole left side of my screen is all empty because the scope's supposed to be there and it's not. And as you can see, this is nowhere near the center of my screen. I'll put a red crosshair on the screen so you can see where I was actually aiming. That's going to be right in the center. So it was on the player. And of course, the crosshairs of my scope way off. Way off. And what you'll see in just a moment here is when it transitions from this scope in view to me taking the shot, my crosshairs on the scope actually don't touch the enemy. The crosshairs will skip over the enemy and I'll take the shot and it's still going to register a hit somehow. This is just crazy to me. I don't think this should ever happen. I don't think the scope should ever be in this position. But anyways, let's play the clip and see what happens when I actually take my shot. So there's about 2 or 3 more frames and then it just snaps over to the left instantaneously while I'm taking my shot, and the crosshairs of my scope never touch the guy, but the hit is still registered. Okay, so let's compare this to how the scopes work in Treyarch games. So if you guys didn't know, this conversation all started on Twitter when I posted this clip. It's a clip from the beginning of the video. If you guys want to be part of discussions like this before they hit my YouTube channel in the form of a video, make sure you're following me on Twitter. So Julian jumped in and he made a good point. He said, this is because when a player turns, it is given a slightly different animation because you're activating weapon sway and scoping animation. This has always been in COD. And if you're standing still, you can scope normally without turning and there wouldn't be a problem. So I thought this was a really good point. I wanted to test it out myself though. So I pulled out some of my old Black Ops 2 clips just to check out how the scope was working there. And this is what I found. So first I put the red crosshair on the screen to see what my scope's crosshairs were doing. And what you'll notice is that the crosshairs of my scope are always right in the very center of my screen. It never deviates from that. They're just completely locked into the center. Another thing that you'll notice is when I throw the grid on again, my scope never deviates from being locked in the center of my screen, the whole entirety of my scope. So it's not just the crosshairs, the whole scope. It's always like the circle part of my scope is always right smack in the middle. And in my opinion, this is how the scope should be in Call of Duty. I don't see why we need this new way that Sledgehammer does it. This is how Infinity Ward does it. This is how Treyarch does it. I think this should be the way to do it. But in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, for the first time, Sledgehammer gave their take on the whole scopes thing, and this is what they came up with. So as you can see, when you scope in, the crosshair doesn't actually go to the center of your screen. It kind of floats around randomly. And it's even more apparent when I put the grid back on. You can see the entirety of the scope is not centered. It kind of sways side to side. The whole right side of the screen is kind of empty there because the scope was swaying over to the left. And I believe it's this scope system malfunctioning that's causing this issue right here. This should never happen. I just feel like this screenshot is so ridiculous. I can't believe that it's possible for this to happen with the scope of a sniper rifle. I think they should just use the same system that Infinity Ward and Treyarch use, the one that has always been in Call of Duty. I don't really think it's necessary to have this scope that flies all over the place. And so you're probably thinking, Nine, what about the different animations when you're turning? So yes, they did have that in previous Call of Duty games like Black Ops 2, as you can see here. So this is the animation when you're making a sharp right and your scope pulls over to the left. But the thing is, when you actually get to see through your scope, it's still centered. And there's the grid so you can see how perfectly centered it is. Gonna let this clip play. It's a cheeky little reload canceled quad feed. And then we're gonna take a look at Black Ops 3. So the Black Ops 3 scopes are actually quite similar to the Black Ops 2 scopes. And in fact, they're a little bit less dramatic in the way that they scope in. So in Black Ops 2, I showed you how it swings all the way to the left while you scope in while turning. But as you just saw there's no big swing to the left of the scope when you scope in while you're making a turn. The crosshairs of my scope here will also line up perfectly with the center of my screen. So as I scope in, I'll put this red crosshair on the screen and you'll see that it's perfectly matched up with where my scope's crosshairs are. when I put this grid over top, you can see that my whole scope is perfectly centered. It's not swaying all over to each side like it does in a Sledgehammer Call of Duty game, and I think this is the way to do it. All the scopes in Call of Duty World War II have this glitchy scope in animation when you're turning, where the crosshairs of your scope do not actually match up with where the bullet is going to go, and that just leaves us guessing as to where we're supposed to be aiming. I don't think it makes much sense at all. You can see it's the absolute worst with the bar with the 4x scope. It's nowhere near the middle of the screen and it takes forever to catch up. So I think that's why I got so many crazy clips with the bar where the crosshairs were nowhere near where it's supposed to be. But anyways, if it was up to me, I would say that Sledgehammer should revert the scopes back to basically how they were in Black Ops 3 or Black Ops 2, kind of along those lines, where the crosshairs of your scope actually tells you where your bullet's going to go, because when the bullet goes somewhere that the crosshairs are not, that's just a little bit crazy, I think, and they really should represent where the bullet's going to go, just like we've seen in previous Call of Duty games. That's just my opinion though. And also, if Sledgehammer Games does end up watching this, man, I really feel like we need 6 kills viewable at a time in the kill feed. Right now you can only see a maximum of 5 kills at a time in the kill feed. That's really not a good thing for montages, because 6 on screens used to be one of the best clips that you can hit, and now it's not even possible to hit a 6 on screen. So that's kind of random. I don't know if Sledgehammer Games would actually listen to the snipers about wanting a bigger kill feed, but anyways, thought I'd mention it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do take 2 seconds to leave a like. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys soon with a new video. Peace.